Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy day to join this webinar. Today, we've got quite an exciting lineup of topics as we talk about beyond the tooling and the future of service management. So when we talk about beyond the tooling, we see some organizations make the mistake of jumping into a tooling decision before they actually pause and have a look at their ways of working. So we're going to talk about the pitfalls of that approach, the benefits of doing it in a very different way. Then ultimately, as we transform, we modernize, we've got this big burning topic that I'm sure nobody's really heard about, but artificial intelligence or AI in service management. We're going to touch quite a lot on that. We're going to have a very open discussion. At the end, please do stick around. We will be having a Q&A, but also feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen as the webinar goes on, and we will come back to them, as I say, at the end in that Q&A session. So before we get going on any of the topics, I'll introduce myself. I am Adam Jackson. I'm the Global Head of Enterprise Service Management at Valiantys. My background is service management through and through. I've been doing it longer than I can remember now. And again, I like to focus on how work actually flows, how we modernize rather than just tooling. I'm then delighted to be joined by one of my favorite people in Atlassian and the Atlassian ecosystem in general, in Tanushree Panigrahi. Tanushree is a principal partner solution strategist at Atlassian and someone I work with quite closely, who is an absolute thought leader in this space. And the other person I'm joined by today is Michael Andolfotto, who is the North American practice lead for service management within Valiantys. And again, Michael is a true thought leader in this space. He is someone who, again, I work with on a daily basis, and he's really driving our strategy as we move forward into more diverse markets. So, as I say, I'm sure you're both very happy to be here as well. We've got a good audience for this topic today. And we will keep it relaxed and dynamic as we always do. So I'm gonna start the ball rolling a little bit, and I'm gonna start with a bit of pace here, because we're going to immediately start talking about AI in service operations. We're going to jump straight into it. No pause, no time. We're just going to run straight into AI in service operations. So what I see is a pattern of organizations and enterprises saying, I want AI. But they're running on legacy or 10-year-old, for instance, ITSM assumptions. So they're kind of going in and they're not setting their data foundations. They're not then building up. They're jumping to the point of how do I do AI rather than thinking about how do I go through that age-old thing that we've seen. So we know that the best organizations start with CMDB and knowledge foundations. They then look at workflows. Then you automate your workflows. Then you look at orchestrating those workflows, and then you bring in AI. So we do see that quite often as a bit of a barrier. So, Tanu, given that context, I'm gonna ask you a question here. What sort of themes or why are you seeing organizations now reconsidering legacy ITSM platforms? So what do you think is making organizations start to think about that differently now?
What I have seen as a consultant for 2 decades, Adam, is it's not a new problem that we are trying to solve. I've seen that with digital transformation and then RPA automation, and now with AI transformation, right? So there are 2 parts to it. One, I feel like the quick win theme and operations, IT operations, I believe is an easy place to really show that ROI. And then it grounds you solving the foundational issues before you go beyond IT and think about your business processes.
Absolutely. We're seeing a lot of like board level pressure now, aren't we? I think a lot of organizations, particularly when you get in the enterprise space, they're being challenged by their shareholders to think about AI.
Yeah. Yeah, and the second part is CMDB. You mentioned CMDB, right? And to me, I mean, I know we have discussed this in the past as well. You're a diehard fan of CMDB, so am I. And we both agree that CMDB is not IT's problem. It has long been an IT problem, and now I believe it's high time organizations realize it's the corporate enterprise problem. If you solve CMDB while you are addressing AI with IT operations, that's where you also fix the foundation for being AI ready for other business processes.
I totally agree, and you've touched on a really good point there about it not being IT's problem, although it is seen as IT's problem. And we see this like time and time again in the customer base that we're working with of CMDB being fragmented leads to breakdowns in your HR processes. It disconnects your finance and payroll processes from your IT processes, and you end up actually exacerbating spend or lost revenue because you're not thinking about CMDB as actually the foundation for your entire organization. We're then building the fact that you've got challenging and fragmented environments that then don't hang together properly with overlapping tools, manual handoffs, and inconsistent processes. So setting that foundation from a CMDB perspective, again, we could, I know, Tanya, you and I could spend an hour talking about CMDB. But ultimately, that is what we're seeing now, is that board level pressure to do AI. But we know from working with organizations that if you disconnect CMDB and ITSM from AI and just go, I'm going to jump into AI, you end up building things over bad data. And I'll tell you a little story. So recently I was having to look for a health insurance provider, and I was working with ChatGPT, or Charlie as I like to call him. I was basically giving him a list of things that I needed to be considered. And what ended up happening was it was coming back and saying, try this provider, and it was like it didn't match what I actually needed. But it was because I was the problem. I was giving it incorrect and incomplete data. What I then did was wrote in a Word document all the different things I need to be considered, and then put it back into ChatGPT and used a really rudimentary AI approach. And it came back with the perfect provider, lowest wait times, best approach, most cost effective. And it was me that was the problem. I was giving it incomplete data. And what I really like about the way that the likes of Rovo and other AI models work now is you can actually see the logic that it's going through on the screen, and it shows you its reasoning. So it's making reasoning based on the data that it's got to hand. There's another story where I think it's an Australian company have built this this website where they're putting like loads of misinformation onto a website to deliberately confuse confuse AI engines. And it's because they're just basically putting lots of incomplete or bad data out there. And it's the same within any organization. Those are two more extreme examples, but it's the same with any organization.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. Michael, obviously from where you're sat, you are an absolute expert when it comes to service management tooling and transformation within organizations. Are you seeing a rising pressure for automation, AI integration from customers for customers?
Definitely a rise in pressure. I wouldn't say that it is a solution area that is being scrutinized as needing heavy AI requirements, but as the person putting this together, quite often I am seeing overwhelming benefit to doing so.
Yeah.
Your examples here about good data versus bad data. One of the most common configurations now that we're rolling out are structured policy documents that contain just that, right? It's a full list of what you're looking for Rovo or any other AI tool to utilize to understand, the best path forward based on how you want it to behave. And especially where, flows, checks for security involvement, anything like that might have been previously been constructed of a very large if-else logic branch, you now have a lot more dynamic capability where it can make its best judgment call based on this more controlled piece of documentation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think like one topic we've talked about a few times is how AI over good data helps you really shift from a reactive to proactive service. But AI over bad data actually just exacerbates the problem and exposes those operational inefficiencies even more visibly. So what you end up with is an expensive sticky plaster over a band-aid for our American audience as well, over a gap in the Hoover Dam. It's like it's never gonna work. It might hold the water for a little while, but ultimately you're still gonna end up with a problem.
Absolutely.
We're just going to shift gears slightly, right? So we've talked about the fact that we've started to see more organizations wanting to do AI, why those pressures exist. But I suppose the bit to tackle, and this is something I'm very passionate about, is what AI really means in service management. So we know that people are just going, let's do an AI, let's do another AI. And I like to pivot it slightly, and I don't like to talk about agents. I like to talk about agentic experiences. So we know that through the evolution of service management, as I talked about there before, we went from post-it notes. I think post-it's actually a brand, sticky note, and we'll use that one on a screen in the IT manager's office, to digital ticketing, to workflows, to automating. Again, as I said there before, into orchestration and then into AI. So we've moved from that reactive ticket management and that siloed support teams and manual coordination to intelligent orchestration, predictive operations, autonomous workflows, cross-functional service delivery. And we know that the power of Atlassian's teamwork graph is what's actually helping to hang all of that together now. So Tanu, how are you seeing organizations who are really effective at AI operations or AI service management using the teamwork graph? What stands out to you for the organizations who are doing it really well today?
So at the beginning, you mentioned CMDB and also mentioned knowledge, right? And a lot of data sits within the Atlassian ecosystem. We know people love Confluence, people love Jira, the engineering team especially, they love Jira and Confluence, and all the data sits in there. And that's where teamwork graph really shines. And not only that, from an enterprise perspective, we all know how much ever I love Atlassian, we know big enterprises have all kinds of platform in the organization. So teamwork graph not only has the context of what's sitting within that Atlassian ecosystem, but can connect to every platform that's within the organization, stitch it together, bring the context based on the persona who is looking at it, and keeping the guardrails in terms of governance, which is, who need to see what. It takes care of that as well, which is why teamwork graph is so successful for people who are using it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And so, Michael, from what Tanu's just explained there with the teamwork graph, what are we seeing the teamwork graph and by extension AI in general actually enabling within customers? So what are they using it for?
So I haven't actually configured teamwork graph with my customers at this point. I am hearing a lot about it. I'm seeing it a lot on the back end internally. So obviously there is a lot of demand there, but I'm still keeping my ear to the ground to see where it's used.
Yeah. And I think that is, one of the things that we're seeing is some organizations are really going quite fast with it. Others are taking their time a little bit more. So, but from an AI perspective, so if we leave teamwork graph to one side, where we're, Tanu explained there about everything connecting together. Obviously, that's another thing that AI does really well. So what are you seeing from a organizational perspective that AI is actually enabling in terms of use cases for, I don't know, the IT service desk, etc.?
Absolutely. Knowledge sharing is a huge one. It's probably one that I'm most impressed with lately, even internally in our own organization, which is a true structure, no matter which org you belong to. But you do have fragmented teams working over similar pieces, similar clients, internal workspaces or engagements. The knowledge that comprises all of that is going to be all over the place. Being able to ask a question, a prompt, or just looking for structure or guidance from AI, and having it pull from places that you don't necessarily even know to look has proven to be a massive help. I think one of the most impressive pieces that I've even noticed is really just in describing what I'm looking for without naming any names of, what project that belongs to. From context, it is able to understand, you're probably talking about this area right here. It can infer based on what you're looking for and really recognize the patterns that you're speaking to.
Yeah. No, that's really true. I mean, what I've started to notice as well is when you then pair that together, so the knowledge and the context, with an actual ITIL process, we're starting to see some real gains in that area. So one of the things we built out recently is, using Rovo and the teamwork graph to build a truly agentic change management experience. So we're talking bringing in an alert, doing that grouping of alerts, handing off to another agent. So we're talking about agentic orchestration here, right? We're not just talking about one agent that's doing it all the way through. And then what that agent is then doing is it's handing off to another one who's then raising the change form. CMDB is an agentic enabled capability. You've almost got an agent per product and service line that sits there and goes, well, as per the rules of my service, and it's all based on documentation. And that documentation has been written by people who are experts in these areas, so it's not just randomly created. You're then able to set a run book that says, these are the thresholds and when I should be able to make the change. This is the number of users. This is the check I've got to do. And what we've actually built out is this process that actually then enables AI to run an entire change end to end. Now, what we've been very careful with, though, is building in breakpoints, because there might be some tasks in there, for instance, updating your knowledge articles or updating CMDB that you might not want AI to do for you. So because we've orchestrated the agent handoffs in between, you've actually then got an approach that goes, well, if I don't want to have an agent that's doing this part, here's where I can then come back and do manual intervention. So we're not losing the end-to-end cascade, but we are still enabling organizations to choose how they're using AI.
Those control points are valuable in a variety of different ways. I mean, even historically, right, setting up these very complex, I'll call them legacy automations that really, span a set of different automation rules start to end to complete a process. Those breakpoints that you're mentioning were large areas for concern, right? If a automation fails or reaches a surface limit halfway through, it's about being able to pick up the pieces and understand where you were to get things back on track. Segmenting them into these agentic capabilities, or even using agents to determine where those failures were and to put back together the context from the pieces. It really does allow you to have a lot more power uplifting the system.
Agreed.
So Adam, I have a question here. I mean, for either of you, you mentioned your change management process about, which kind of highlighted human in the loop, which is either, overhyped sometimes is what I hear from different people who are more about AI and running really autonomous AI agents end to end, no human in the loop other than a little bit of oversight. Sometimes people feel it's underrated as well, because you don't want to lose control, especially thinking about governance. Where do you see your clients in between these two, over versus underrating human in the loop?
I think as a general trend, it's probably more centered towards human in the loop, but there's a big reason for that. And for me, the mistake organizations are making at the moment is they are thinking about creating an agent, or as I like to call it, doing an AI. They're not thinking about actually what is the overall gain. And one thing I'm a big believer in is you cannot improve what you do not measure, because even if you improve it, you cannot prove that it's worked. So where we're seeing organizations actually move towards is they're taking a pause. So before they jump in that tooling decision, they're actually looking and going, do I know what my mean time to resolve is? Have I tracked how many changes? Do I know which pieces of hardware are actually causing the most number of incidents that I might need to do a swap out? So they're actually taking a step back and going, where do my processes and my ways of working today actually need to be improved before I can bring in AI to be effective? And there's an example that I've heard about from someone actually that I was talking to, because I am a nerd. I was talking to them, I think, outside of work. And I was saying, yeah, AI is great. I've built an agent that helps me do this task. And so my brain went straight to, okay, yeah, so how often do you do that task? And they were like, well, once a month. And I was like, well, how long did it take you before? 5 minutes. I was like, if I'm sat there as an executive and someone is saying to me, we need to use more AI, and I go, how many examples have you got? Well, this one here saved 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't really care about that. That's really good for the individual. But the mistake organizations are making is they're not looking at it from a, how could I really improve where I'm at? And then giving themselves the breakpoint. Because if you build an agent that runs changes end to end, as Michael said there before, it's exactly the same way with a really complex workflow, a really complex automation. And to be honest, some of the stuff people have tried to do with AI so far, they might as well have just continued automating. It is that data foundation. So it's a long way to answer your question, but I'd say at the moment, customers are probably more towards wanting human in the loop or keeping it human centric. But we are seeing a pivot. We've had a few different requests through for true AI workflow or AI orchestrated workflow platforms rather than just ticketing tools. Michael, what about yourself?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Definitely noticing, an influx of people that are looking to address problems with AI without really understanding the true root cause. It's an old problem, that we've seen, and it takes me way back to some of these old marketplace plugins in the Atlassian ecosystem that are, meant to report and really aggregate data and really showcase to your executives everything that you need and really improve visibility and the flow of work. But it's data at the data level, just like it's processes at the process level. If they are not where they need to be and you are just trying to apply a solution on top of something that is broken without recognizing the areas that truly need fixing, it's not going to do anything for you.
Yeah. And I think you've got that elephant in the room point as well, as like AI is new. It's going to take all of our jobs. I've got a question for both of you, right? A little bit of a trivia question. Do you know when the first research paper activity was written on AI? I'll take decade.
When was the first research paper written about
When
AI?
did AI research start?
Oh, yeah, goes decades back, actually, several decades, not just a decade, probably before all of us were born. I would say, right? I mean, definitely
Yeah.
that.
Michael, have you got a more specific guess?
I definitely do not. It's going to be earlier than I'm thinking.
The 1930s.
I was thinking 20s, actually.
Yeah, the
Believe it or not.
30s. Yeah,
Wow.
the 30s. And then you had the Turing test then came in, which was
Yeah.
starting to solidify it a little bit more. And even through like the 50s and 60s, as it gathered a little bit more pace. Do you know what they said, even at that early day? Do you know what they said the most crucial part for potentially building artificial intelligence and neural networks would be in the future?
What's that?
Knowledge, data. So this is the thing. People are, because ChatGPT basically just landed very quickly. It was what, 3-4 years ago now.
Yeah, 4 years ago. Yeah.
And we've seen a real change of pace. But again, I was talking to someone earlier today outside of work again about the pace of AI, and I was dropping those facts in there as well. They made the point computers are the same sort of thing. Like, we were nowhere. Then all of a sudden we had this massive boom and this massive rush. We know that organizations today haven't found the most effective use for AI yet. And it's been, what, 1930s? I keep forgetting what date it is, 90 odd years. So we know there's still a lot to gain. And I think this kind of potential hesitation around, do I want a human in the loop? We, as an organization, specialize in working with companies to help them find different work for people. And I say find different work, I don't mean that, but it's looking at the strategic way of, if you've got AI that's then running a process and that was arduous, it was boring, it was laborious, what else could you be doing? How could you actually get those people closer to revenue driving activities? How could you improve that part? So I think we will start to see a real transformation around ROI benefits.
Yes.
And we will start to see that. But I think at the moment we're still in a little bit of grey area, but that's where we come in to help. Because I mean, we've touched on a few of these things, but we know that AI effectiveness is essentially dependent on trusted operational data. It's that knowledge, those foundations. It's that workflow maturity, connecting your systems. Michael made the point around governance there before, and then those automation foundations. And unless you do all of those things, you essentially have, AI chaos, or what is it that people say, AI hallucination. It produces inconsistent outcomes. Your automation doesn't scale efficiently, and you essentially have teams that are losing trust in the AI recommendations. But if you really look at it as an end-to-end process of what do I actually want to achieve, you will see some good results there. I think one of the other bits of reading that I've been doing recently is at the moment people are thinking about how does AI or an agent do the work in the same way as what a human does it today. We know that as a species, we are not the most efficient in the world. Right? So I think we will start to see organizations pivot towards where AI starts to take actions. So we're going to have to repivot again. I think there's going to be a second wave of AI evolution in the next 5 years, of where AI is looking at outcomes. And where organizations have had a good head start, that is where they've started to do it. So Tanushree, sorry, have you or Atlassian starting to think in that way? Are you seeing customers starting to think about using AI in a way that's more focused on outcomes than just making humans more efficient?
Yeah, in fact, today I was reading an article from our CHO. Specifying specifically, calling out all these points as to where Atlassian is thinking in terms of AI and what that future with Rovo AI looks like in general as well, not only from Atlassian platform perspective, but also in general where Atlassian sees the future of AI to be. So I'll definitely, point that article that was published just this week to go through that and really understand what we are thinking beyond the features and functionalities that we are pushing on a regular basis, what we think AI future should look like.
Yeah. And do you know what I absolutely love about this so far, this conversation? We're about 30 minutes in, and I can't actually remember us mentioning the word ticket at all. And we know that the future service management isn't ticket management, right? That is long gone. It's enterprise-wide orchestration, and it's powered by trusted data and AI then driving those outcomes, and that's exactly where the teamwork graph comes in for me.
Yeah.
We're going to change gears again a little bit here, and we're going to move on to something Michael mentioned, but also layered in with Tanushree and I's favorite topic, and that is data governance and CMDB.
Yeah.
Strap yourselves in, audience. This is going to be a wild ride. So, Michael, we'll start with the governance element. We know that clean, governed operational data is the foundation for automation, orchestration, and then AI outcomes. So, where do you see organizations struggle with that data quality? And two-part question. Where have you seen organizations then transform, become more effective? What strategies have they deployed?
I think there are many areas that suffer from this. Among the, largest or most common offenders, I would say, is probably a combination of either knowledge or else, staying on top of refinement activities. This is definitely an area that I think I myself at least suffer in, which is starting things, things that are just necessary, aren't necessarily fun, you need to do quite often, and really don't engage your brain all that much, but they are just necessary evils to make sure that things are carrying on the way that you would expect them to carry on. Your knowledge is always up to date and most common. So for me, typically how that is shown is just making sure that, documentation, processes, our configuration options, field values, everything is refined, up to date, and current. Our properties, our rankings of how critical things tie into our system, into our business and our services, same lines. What I do find is kind of funny, when we're talking about this divide of, where can we establish that trust, who ultimately makes decisions versus what can we leverage AI for. That is, I think, a lot of the scrutiny that's on the table right now. But at the very least, I mean, AI getting the ball rolling by creating or starting to draft or refine or make suggestions, while humans, of course, intervene, look over, and consolidate or modify the data that's suggested. It is probably what I am seeing as kind of the easiest entry point to adopting that mentality or standpoint.
Got you. So to get the data ready for AI, you're seeing organizations use AI to clean the data.
So it's to say that, if you are wrapping up an engagement or you have just dealt with a particularly troublesome major incident, you are able to have AI analyze the pieces that were involved. Here are the knowledge articles that were suggested. Here are the services that were impacted by the incident, the CMDB items that may be relevant to the outage. All of these towards the end of the process. What involves a healthy retrospective is making sure that your response to all of this, the data themselves, the data points are accurate and up to date. There is a lot of, I would say, individual scrutiny that's required to make sure everything is as it's meant to be, and consolidating those all in one place and then getting the ball rolling to start that analysis and review. I think people look at it as this large mountain and are afraid to chip away at it while, we've got other priorities that are happening in the organization. Having AI just take a stab at laying everything out for you, here's what you need to review, here are my personal thoughts on it, alleviates a lot of that tension from the individual and makes that retrospective experience a lot easier.
Yeah. So we're then back to another core ITIL principle, basically, of continuous improvement. So
absolutely.
What we're seeing here, right? We're all getting very excited and thinking AI is this massive, complex beast. We're just doing the same things. We're just getting a bit more efficient at doing them.
It really is just, the next evolution of our tool set. But fundamentally, the things that we're doing are the same. They're the same activities that we need to be doing.
I love that. Evolution, not revolution, is one of my favorite sayings. So, initially, obviously, I know your attitude to this. You can just throw AI over any data quality. Your CMDB doesn't need to be complete. Everything's fine. Was that your opinion that you said? Oh no, it was the opposite of that, wasn't it? So, are you seeing organizations kind of sit up and realize a little bit more that data quality is probably more important than ever?
Yeah, definitely. Everybody, probably, like you said, 4 years ago when ChatGPT came and everybody was into the race of AI, not so much. Everybody was trying to catch up with the hype, including all the product companies as well, right? But that's shifting right now. Data foundation, yes, but also governance. You touched upon governance at the beginning of this question. Equally important, it's an ongoing thing. You mentioned continuous improvement from ITIL best practices perspective. So that continuous improvement is ongoing governance of not only the data, but all the new risks that you're bringing into along with AI, right? Because with AI now, you must have noticed that with your customers, across ESM processes where everybody is becoming citizen developers because it's so easy and every department is bringing in their own AI into the mix. All that is part of CMDB as well, if you think about it. It's not just your hardware infrastructure. It's not just your software assets that you capture and relate to people. All this data and documentation we are talking about, everything falls under that CMDB governance. CMDB governance becomes more important part of this overall data and AI governance. And we can literally have a topic on that itself later on.
Yeah, I think we should do a spin-off version of this session where we talk purely about CMDB, and I think that would end up being about 4 hours, knowing the three of us.
Yeah, what does CMDB look like in the AI transformation world?
Yeah, and I mean, this is the whole thing. I've touched on this a couple of times already. It's like, if you can get your trusted CMDB and asset visibility with your golden records, connect your workflows, then look at your intelligent automation, you're then building your cross-platform orchestration, agentic AI operations, you're then move to this predictive and autonomous service delivery. There's a really good example that I've actually seen deployed before, and it's around preemptive maintenance within ITOT environments. So essentially, if you think about a robotic arm that's pressing car parts time and time again, in the past, you'll have, if you've built in your monitoring platform, you'll have understood that, maybe after 10,000 presses, there needs to be some maintenance put in, or it might be a time-bound window.
Yeah.
What I saw in the past was then it was a manual request or email or ticket. I'm using the word ticket, but it's to prove a point. That was then manually worked through and different people were sent to site. What I've seen actually deployed really effectively recently is it's not replacing those ITOT systems, it's complementing them. So Atlassian then steps in from a JSM perspective, and it gets an alert through the teamwork graph, through an API that turns around and says, I've reached 9,500 presses, I'm going to need maintenance. And what it's then doing is it's orchestrating all the activities in behind. So you've got a third-party supplier who potentially needs another part, who potentially needs to get some oil. It's sending all that off in a journey style that then turns around and goes, well, actually, my engineer is going to arrive at site on this day. I already know that they're coming. They're already cleared to work here. They're already trained. They're already skilled. All that information is in CMDB. So the engineer's name and the fact that they've been skilled and trained in that department, or they've got the right clearance, CMDB. And the fact that they need to get this type of oil, CMDB. The fact that all these process flows are set up in the background, CMDB. That's before we even get into AI. It's essentially predictive analytics. So again, we're just evolving from where we were before, and it's really working together. I think the key part for me here is the modernization conversation has been for a while. Which ITSM tool should we buy? How should we do digital transformation? And that's starting to die. It's the question really is, or should be from an organizational standpoint, is how do we create governed and connected operational foundations that enable enterprise-wide AI? So I touched a little bit on organizations starting this to connect their service management flows to revenue generating activities. What you need to be thinking about today, it's not about how do I get a new tool. It's actually how do I connect everything together from a foundational aspect to improve my organization.
Yeah, no, that's very true, and that's why context is the new thing that every vendor is talking about it. And I mentioned teamwork graph brings that into the picture for the enterprises as well, which is the context. Like we have been talking about it, right? It's not about how many AI features even we as Atlassian are bringing on to. We are releasing constantly. So are other vendors in the market. But it's important for organizations, with the help of partners like you, is to understand what is right fit for me. Should I automate this? So step back, stay away from the hype, step back and see what actually is needed for you versus I want to do this or I want to do AI because everybody else is doing AI.
Yeah, totally agree. Michael, question for you, if I may. What do you see as the key reason for organizations modernizing service management today?
The key reason to modernize?
Yeah, what are the key reasons that organizations are choosing to modernize?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are probably a good number of people that are evaluating the processes that they have. And, these are companies that have been around for many, many years, decades at this point, using the same legacy IT tooling and the same untouched processes. A lot of the clients that I deal with are using things that have been put together by people that are no longer at the organization. And quite frankly, they're afraid to touch because nobody really has a full understanding top to bottom or else mastery of the configurations that are holding it all together. There is, I think, no point on earth other than today where things have been as streamlined and available when we're looking at, making knowledge widely spread, documented solutions widely available. it really does not compare to the power we have at our fingertips today. And so a lot of these previously bottlenecked or failing or just overall legacy processes that haven't been properly reviewed are at the very least on the table for discussion. I would say that what we are seeing, at least for the engagements that are coming across onto my desk here as well, is just a primary failure that is really getting the conversation rolling. Whether that is a repeat system or service that is continuously dropping, or else a metric that has been created where we're able to understand there is some performance issue with the team, tracing these things back to an underlying area of their foundational IT system really opens the gates to, not just this one issue and what is prevalent behind the scenes and not working as we might expect, but a whole rigged skeleton of configurations that really are just overdue to be looked at. So modernization is in part those fixes. It's trying to make things reviewed and refined and as streamlined as they can be. But it's while we're in that review period, just understanding, where are we in the industry right now? What is at our fingertips for, the most current option? How are people doing things today? Or where are our recommendations to move forward or pivot adjacently into?
Yeah, they're really good points. I mean, but ultimately, what you're talking about there really is preparing the operational foundations for potential AI adoption. So all the stuff that we've talked about already, you're talking about processes, data, refining, improving to prepare for a truly modern way of working.
Yeah, and I think, AI or not, absolutely AI is on the table for improving things all across the board. But it goes back to your point as well, Adam, about, where do we actually want to enable AI? Where do we want to prioritize this adoption rather than just introducing AI for the sake of AI? Truly, where can it streamline and alleviate our problems?
Totally agree. Anu, have you got any thoughts on why you think organizations are modernizing as well?
Yeah, I mean, modernizing ITSM has been there at least for a decade, right? We know that. And I think I was listening to what Michael was talking about, and without naming any vendor here, I think over configuration, over customization, which kind of is a marketing thing for many vendors that they are scalable and flexible enough, is actually becoming the blocker right now in terms of getting ready for AI. So today's world, modernizing service management is more so getting ready for AI. And like you said, AI ready from an operational foundation perspective.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of customer requirements coming through now, and it's a big change from what I've seen in the past. Of they're asking the question. This is something we're prepared for, right? Because we know our stuff, but they're asking the question around total cost of ownership and ROI in the requirements that come through. So they're proactively saying, how will this improve my TCO and ROI? They're looking to reduce the operational cost, not just the kind of license cost as well. I think, Michael, you touched on really nicely the fact that you can improve speed, agility, and service resilience by modernizing. We're seeing, as I've said, that kind of future of service management where these RFPs, these RFIs are coming through and people are naming them AI orchestrated workflow platform, not ITSM tool, which is really interesting. It's really refreshing to see because that helps us because we're writing and we're planning and we're delivering in this way. And there's I think the big barrier we see with some organizations is they're almost afraid to ask, or they don't ask enough. They write their RFP based on how a legacy platform has worked, how they've previously worked. And what we want to be talking about is actually we can save you a load of money. Invest here and we'll save you a load of money. We'll help you really drive your organization. We'll improve your internal employee and customer experiences. We'll look at how we can truly automate everything. One of the barriers to getting there at the moment that I see is organizations are still siloed in terms of decision-making processes. You might have a platform owner for Atlassian. You might then have an IT systems owner. You might then have an HR systems owner. all fragmentation of decision. And again, it takes that step back from the tool and thinking, and I like to use this phrase, who do we want to be when we grow up? Right? Do we want to be a 6 or 7 out of 10 IT organization? Do we want to be a truly automated, intelligent workforce where everything sings? You no longer need to contact your service desk because everything's proactive. You don't need to request a new laptop because it's come out to you automatically. And these are all things that if you break it down process by process, as Michael talked about, you look at the gaps and the steps that you need to do, then you think about what your vision is. The possibilities are endless. There's so many amazing things that could be out there. The other thing that, again, I was asked this internally actually, and it's a really good question. I've been asked it a few times in my career. If you were to restart your business today, how would you do it? Think about that. It's a big question. What would you do if you started your business today? You had 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 10,000, 100,000 people, all ready to go. What would you do? And I think if you can think about those things, that brings you to this. Actually, what's my dream state? What's my nirvana? What's my feature-driven outcome that I want to get to? And then you bring in these layers of what are your prioritized areas of improvement, and you balance them off, and then you work through like that. Think big, because the possibilities are there. And if you're not doing it, your competitors will be. There are organizations out there who are really driving forward. But it's a journey, right? Everyone starts, everyone's got to go through there. And I think if you can then think about what's my dream state, where am I today, your balance and your baseline where you're at the moment, you've then got your areas for improvement on a gradual roadmap. Don't try and do it all at once. Won't work. You'll just end up with massive complexity. I think I saw something actually like you lose 40% of efficiency in the transformation project before it's even started. Or 40% gains, I think it is, or 40% ROI in a transformation project before it's even started, because you spend so much time thinking and talking about all of the individual parts rather than thinking about what your dream state is and then just prioritizing and building. It's quite powerful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that is also why we're seeing a lot of emphasis on these visionary roles too, right? The transformation leaders that are able to expedite this process, really evaluate the holistic picture rather than any individual segment. It is funny too. I've run through exercises before in the topic of human-computer interaction where you're looking at an assignment to redesign the layout of the interior of a car, right? It's not about what one thing could you change to make this car better or the user experience better. It's, let's say you have no idea how a car actually works, but here is what we needed to do. Where would you start completely redesigning the system?
Yeah.
And I think if I were to just, rephrase what you both just mentioned is the old way of working fit into the AI transformation? Not just data and governance. We started with data and governance and we talked about legacy tools, but I think legacy operating models as well. That is so critical at an org level to think about that new target operating model. Adam, to answer your question, if I were to start a new business today, I would think about a new operating model, new way of working in my organization versus the traditional way, which does not fit into the AI world.
Yeah. And I think that's absolutely, spot on. I think it is that, as you say, is it fit for purpose for the modern world? Is it where I want to be? What is my target operating model? And how do I drive success? What are my success metrics?
Yes.
I think that's the key thing. People don't really know what the metrics are around this success stuff. Then that layers down and that add all sorts of complexity in there. And we're going to change gears slightly now. So what we're going to talk about a little bit is the Valiantys approach to service management modernization. Now, our first step, we've got about 6 steps, I think it is. I haven't counted them out, but ultimately, we start with a strategic assessment. So like we've talked about there before, we're understanding business goals and operational pain points. So one of the things we use that's quite simple actually is a service performance metrics data sheet. It's essentially talking about your mean time to resolve, where are you up to with your kind of incident management service desk performance across your different business areas. That then gives us a starting point for a data-driven analysis to give us a conversation. We're then assessing, as Michael's touched on a few times, process maturity, governance and tooling complexity. And then we build in an AI readiness gap assessment. So we're not jumping straight to, oh yeah, AI is your answer, but actually we're starting at that foundational level to look at, if we're going to solve for AI in the future, which pieces are missing today. But again, we're not really thinking about tooling at this part. We're not talking about workflows. We're talking about your processes outside of the system. Our next step really is to then look at process, and Tanushree mentioned it there before, operating model design. So we're rationalizing workflows, we're improving that service ownership, and we're aligning IT, engineering, and business operations on common goals to establish and enable governance standards. We then move into data and service foundations. No surprise here. We're looking at CMDB and asset quality. We're looking at knowledge management and documentation. Again, Michael's touched on processes a few times, and this is something that we are firm believers in, is analyzing your process documentation, analyzing your process steps, and then looking at workflows. So the mistake some organizations make is they build a process into their workflows, when actually your workflows should enable your process. You shouldn't build your process in your workflow engine. Enable the process, separate the two out. And again, that comes down to kind of separating and stepping back from tooling. We're then kind of up to step 4 of the journey, and it's around platform modernization. So this is where we are really starting to talk about tooling. So we've done basically 3 big steps before we even start to look at migrating from that fragmented or legacy ITSM to Jira Service Management and the Service Collection. And Tanushree, I know you're going to talk in a moment a little bit about the Service Collection. We're then simplifying and consolidating your service operations. So again, we've set your foundations, we've done CMDB, we've looked at your platform, and now we're into automation and orchestration. So we're still following that age-old journey of, what are you up to today? Where's your baseline? How are we measuring you today? What is your success criteria? What steps do you want to take? Data foundations, platform modernization, automation and orchestration. And then the 6th step is AI-ready operations. We're still going on this journey. So if you started a modernization program 2 years ago, and then you go, well, actually, now I've got to think about AI, you've probably done 75 to 80% of the work already. If you've set your principles up, your foundations up from a best practice approach in service management, essentially all you're doing is you're layering AI over the top. You don't need to scrap what you've got today. It's actually about modernizing where you're up to. Again, evolution, not revolution. Ultimately, what Valiantys is doing is assisting organizations to evolve from this fragmented service management approach, disparate processes, unknown data, to a connected, orchestrated, AI-ready operational way of working. Like I say, we're now going to switch over a little bit to talk about the service collection. So I think, Tanushree, first of all, what is the service collection?
So collections are basically a bundle more from how this queue management is. So to think about it, we traditionally had Jira Service Management. We also had Asset. And then we have CSM now, new to the list, not so new, almost been a year now. So all these together is what we refer to as service collection. So anything that has to do from a service management perspective, no matter, and don't mistake it with IT only, any team who provides any kind of service, whether to internal or external customers, is all part of service collection. They can actually use service collection. And from the beginning, we have been talking so much about CMDB. So again, the word can be misunderstood. We call it asset, but that's what, asset, enterprise asset, anything, not just CMDB, any asset from people, process, tool, documentation, everything that will belong to your asset, what our product is called asset. So 3 together, service collection.
So we're already talking about connecting service operations together.
Yeah, both internal and external, right, from a service operations perspective.
Yeah. And what are the key benefits, do you think, of the service collection?
Like I said, any team, if you think about it from a business standpoint, either you're serving any business team, internal, which is basically your enterprise, is serving either a group of internal employees or serving customers externally. So if you were to provide any kind of service, you need a system of record. So that's what your system of record becomes. Your IT tickets, you said tickets. We don't want to use the tickets, but IT records, right? I mean, you still need to have that system of record, no matter
Yeah,
how many agents are actually automating your end-to-end process. You still need that auditable system of record. So that's what your GSM would do from an internal service management perspective. And same thing from a CSM, you change the lens from internal to external customers, and that's where CSM comes in, where you're serving external customers. And then the foundation doesn't change, no matter you're serving internal or external customers. What are your businesses? What kind of services you're providing? What are those software, hardware, or any kind of tangible, non-tangible assets that you're managing for which you're providing those services? Even your list of customers, your internal employees, all that sits on the foundation, which is asset.
yeah. And that's then enabling your orchestration through teamwork graph and then into agentic outcome focused
Correct.
approaches. Excellent. Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of the service collection. I'm sure everyone listening is as well. We're getting closer to the end of the session now, so I'm just gonna touch on and break down essentially what beyond the tooling and the future of service management actually means. So what is included, and these are things basically summarize that we've talked about today. We're talking about AI assisted operations, so outcome focused rather than just an agent to throw over the top of something. We're talking about autonomous and agentic workflows, predictive service management, enterprise-wide orchestration, which Tanusha, you just touched on very heavily in the service collection section there. We haven't really touched as much on zero-touch operations or self-healing networks. But if we think about the way that we're constructing this this discussion here, we're enabling all of those things by actually bringing in the data into the platform, looking at the automation, the workflow approach into orchestration and AI. We're feeding essentially an AI system that's going to allow us to run those self-healing workflows and those zero-touch operations. We've talked about cross-functional automation. And again, big passion area of mine, unified operational visibility. I think ultimately the key takeaway here really is organizations that modernize their operational foundations today, they'll be the ones that succeed when it comes to operationalizing AI tomorrow. So think about that modernization journey. Don't just think about AI. Ultimately, if you go through each of these different segments and these approaches, you will be successful. If you try to jump into AI without setting your foundations, that's where you will struggle. To wrap up then, we'll go through some practical recommendations and next steps. So we touched on this in terms of the Valiantys journey and the service collection approach, but I strongly recommend that you start with business outcomes and not tooling. Prioritize your governance and data quality early, rationalize your workflows before migration, build your phased transformation roadmaps, so don't just think about it in one go. Design for orchestration, not just isolated automation. Michael touched on this point earlier, so one thing I was going to say is treat AI readiness as an operational strategy. Do it for the right reasons is what I'll add to qualify, because I think, Michael, your point there of just there's no point just doing AI for the sake of it. It's got to be for the right reasons, for the right part. And then think about including adoption and change management from day one. Don't think about that later. Think about how you're going to do that. As you're planning your transformation, think about how you're going to do the change management and adoption. Because by the time you get 6 months into a program and you've sunk cost and you've sunk resource and you then realize that you haven't got an adoption program, it's far too late. That's where that kills projects. It absolutely kills projects. So please do reach out if you would like to have a further conversation around service management of the future. And we'll be happy to have a broader discussion. Michael, are there any kind of final words from you for the session for the audience today?
Honestly, I think you did a great job summarizing. Nothing is standing out to me as a item that we haven't really covered. Obviously, what we have been talking about today is kind of holistic or widespread takes. Every organization that's adopting modernization, AI as a tool, is going to approach it, slightly differently. We've got our overall approach for how to expand, how to improve. Ultimately, it involves conversations with the right people, willingness to change and adapt and grow. So just recognizing that in your stakeholders is, I think, the most important aspect right now.
Excellent. Thanks, Michael. Tanushree, what about yourself?
Yeah, no, I would like to say, conclude, that Atlassian is not the only platform that your customers are using, but definitely a key part, and not to forget Teamwork Graph, which actually would be the core of your AI strategy, given that it kind of brings in the context across your enterprise, connecting to all the tools and platforms that you're using, and your 6-step process, your framework that Valiantys has definitely helps you get started with your AI journey.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Tanushree. So what we're going to do now is we are going to move on to the Q&A section. Tanushree and Michael are going to drop off, so we're just going to pause for a moment, and then I will be back for the Q&A section to go through the questions that have come in as we've been discussing. So thank you very much, Tanushree and Michael. As always, absolute pleasure speaking to both of you. I've really enjoyed the discussion today. As I say, I am a very passionate service management CMDB person, as you know. So I really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to sit and talk to me.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Take care.